we go. Okay. All right. Excellent. So good evening, everyone. I think everyone can hear me okay. It looks like the little microphone is doing its thing. So welcome. My name is Meredith Dooney, and I'm the program coordinator at the Lawrence Library in Pepperell. And I am very pleased to introduce Donna Dailey, who's here tonight with us from New England Career Services. She is the founder of New England Career Services. And I'm just going to cheat here. I'm going to read just a little bit of her bio, just so you guys know a little bit of her background. And then Donna, I'll let you kind of take it away from there. And then at some point, you can open up to any questions that people have. And I would say, as long as we take the last question by about 7:20 or so, we should be good. So Donna Dailey is the founder and CEO of New England Career Services, LLC. Prior to opening her company in 2010, she managed the Nashua and Manchester vocational departments for Easter Seals. Donna has been working in the recruiting and staffing field for 15 plus years, working in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. She has worked with people who have physical, emotional, and mental or learning disabilities, as well as individuals with substance abuse issues and inmates being released from prison. Donna is no stranger to the many challenges individuals face while seeking employment. She has also worked with veterans and their families returning from Iraq and Afghanistan in the Veteran Services Program at Easter Seals. Donna started her career as a recruiter for a staffing agency in Marlborough, Massachusetts, working with the homeless population and inmates being released from the Billerica House of Correction and MCI in Framingham, as well as other individuals looking for employment. Donna worked closely with companies in the Marlborough, Hudson, Acton, and Sudbury areas looking to fill their employment needs. And then, let's see, she went to work for a recruiting agency in Manchester. Donna's role was to match the skills of the applicants with the current job openings available with different companies in the Manchester, Hooksett, and Darien, Salem areas, letting people in, okay? And so Donna's role as a career counselor with New England Career Services includes resume writing, teaching, interviewing skills, job development, bringing clients to job shadows and informational interviews, conducting labor market surveys, as well as some case management. She's maintained strong ties with both the Nashua and Manchester communities and has worked closely with the Department of Education and Vocational Rehabilitation and area high schools, assisting individuals with their vocational goals. Donna works along with the New Hampshire School of Mechanical Trades in Manchester, New Hampshire, conducting workshops to assist students with developing resumes and portfolios. Donna graduated with high distinction honors with her master's in educational studies from Rivier University in Nashua, New Hampshire. She is also a certified employment support professional and is ACRE certified. I don't know what that is. But I can tell you guys one other thing, which is I actually have a close personal friend who met with Donna and has experienced extraordinary results after having had her counsel or advisement or whatever you want to call it. So take it away, Donna.
Thank you. I just learned that a few minutes ago about your friend. I didn't even realize that. A lot of that is the power of networking. And I will always say,
oh, wait. Hold on. Unmute yourself. I don't know what I just did. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
There we go. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I went to mute myself and somehow you got muted. I think I need to put my glasses back on.
Not a problem.
All right.
Well, can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
What we were talking about is Meredith has a friend that was not happy with his career, and he came to see me, and I happened to know someone in the career that he may have been interested in pursuing. And just through the power of networking, they were able to meet, and it just turned out to be a match. But I really stress the importance when you are looking to change jobs to make sure you let people know, not necessarily the people you're working with, but let your friends, anybody, neighbors, whatever know, because you never know how you're going to get your foot in the door at a company. And I've always been a firm believer, as sad as it sounds, is it's more who you know than what you know that will help you get your foot in the door. And I will go over that a little bit during our presentation tonight when we speak about LinkedIn. So I guess you want to share the screen and we can kind of get started. I do have a PowerPoint to show you. So let's see.
Yeah, go for it. That sounds great.
Okay.
And I'll keep an eye on the chat just in case anybody has.
Okay, yeah. And people, if you want to put in questions on chat so you don't forget, that would be fine. All right, so let's see. Okay. Did you do share screen? I don't think I'm the host. You just go next to my name and it should say make host. See, it has a list of participants, all the people that are in the meeting. If you right click on my name, it should come up, make host. Okay, we're good. Okay. So we will get started. How do I get out of this? All right. Here we go. Okay. Well, this is me and my company, New England Career Services, and I've been in business since 2010. I do have a physical office on Amherst Street in Nashua, and I also do meet people remotely. Just a little bit about me. I have actually 25 plus years in recruiting and working in the recruiting and staffing industry. And I went to college later in life. And the reason I bring that up is because I've always hear people saying, and I probably said it myself at one time, oh, I'm too old to go to college. And I always wanted to go to college when I was younger, but life got in the way, and I started a family, and I wanted my kids to go to school. And I just never took the time for myself to do it. Plus, I think I was really afraid to do it as well. One of my biggest fears was not being able to keep up with the younger people. I really thought, how am I ever going to fit in with them? And actually, when I got into school, I found that that was not an issue at all. We all have something to bring to the table. And much of the things that I never gave any thought about, I went to school with people from other countries. Many of the things I just never realized. I actually can say I probably got more education just by being with my fellow classmates as I did, being book smart. And I always share this story because I don't know, I guess we all have these generational things. And I majored in I have an undergrad in human growth and development with a minor in social work. And then I went on to get my master's in educational studies with a focus in counseling. So I had to do a group project, and there were 5 of us. And of course, I was the oldest student in my group. And in fact, I was one of the oldest students in my class. And so it was how far women have come. So you got to figure many of these girls were just, just out of high school. And here I am. And when I was in high school, I used to have to kneel down. Maybe some of you can relate to this and come down to the auditorium. We had to kneel on the floor. And if our skirts didn't touch the floor, we were sent home. And here's girls that I'm going to school with now with ripped jeans. And it was just totally different. And they never realized how far women have really come in really not that long of a time, So when they all did their presentation, and one did something on women's rights to vote and all the different ways we've come, we had our first woman vice president and running for vice president and all that. So I thought I would really be cool, and I summed it up. So I showed how far women have come, and I had this song that was playing in the presentation. So I said to them, you're just going to love this. You're going to absolutely love this. And you know what song it is? It's that song, I Am Woman by Helen Reddy. Well, these 4 girls looked at me like, who's Helen Reddy? But I knew who Helen Reddy was because I grew up in that generation. But that was my point is, if you ever are thinking of going to college, never put it off because you think you're too old, because you never are. And you have a lot to offer as well. Again, I was the last class to graduate from what was Rivier College. It's now changed to Rivier University. So these are some of the internships that I did while I was in college. One was with the Norwell House in Nashua, which is a transitional home for girls that are single and have children. And I just love this. They have addiction or mental health issue problems, and I would work with them and do workshops and help them with their vocational goals. I also worked at Keystone Hall. And again, was working with people with substance abuse issues. And I did work at Easter Seals, and I also did an internship there. And I worked closely with a lot of the mental health counselors that were working with veterans that were coming back from overseas. And I also worked at the community college, creating a database of all the human service agencies throughout New Hampshire to help people with their careers. Just a quick overview of myself. Again, I started my business in 2010. Been in the, we already kind of went over this in the very beginning. I've been in the recruiting and staffing industry for many years. And how I got into that is I found myself when my children were little, I always worked what I call mom jobs, the jobs that you could work around your kid's schedule. And then I found myself in a situation where I was going to be a single mom. And I said, now I got to get what I call a real job. And I was absolutely scared stiff. I didn't know what I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know what skills I had. I just knew I had to do it somehow. So I ended up going to a couple of staffing agencies and figuring if they sent me to different companies, I would get a feel for what I would like. And the feel I got was I didn't like working in big companies. I didn't like corporate America. It just wasn't my style. But I was fascinated by the people behind the desk. And I knew this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people with their careers. And I felt I could do it and do it well because I've been there myself. And I think when you've already been there, you have a much better understanding of where your client is coming from. So that was my journey. And then I worked at Easter Seals, and I worked with all sorts of people with disabilities. I don't think there's a disability I have not worked with over the years. Worked with veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. I've worked with people getting out of prison, and I just love it. It just everybody has a challenge, but that doesn't mean that they can't work usually. Okay, this is something, a little thing people don't know about me. I'm passionate about human services. I'm passionate about helping people. So I spent a night homeless to raise awareness for homelessness. And I slept in a cardboard box in the pouring rain on the front lawn of Nashua Community College. And I raised $1,000 for homelessness. So that's my little house in the back. That's the cardboard box, if you can see that. Now, what do I do day to day? I do career counseling. I help people with resume writing, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, help teach people interviewing skills. I work with a lot of people that may have been in one job for 25, 30 years. They came from a time when there was no such thing as internet and applying for jobs online. And they are just paralyzed with fear. It's like, what am I going to do? I've only done one job my whole life. And they cannot see that the skills that they have. So I will work with them on interviewing skills, help them with online applications if necessary, try to arrange job shadows, informational interviews, conduct labor market surveys to make sure that maybe the career you're looking for is in this area. And I've actually done case management with people I've worked with as well, if they need it. So people always say, why is a professional resume so important? It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a company or you are working in construction. A professional resume is very, very important. And the reason why it is so important is because it has the ability to open up doors for you. We no longer live in a society where you could just knock on a door and ask for so-and-so and show them a piece of paper, or they'll take your word and say, you've got the job. It just isn't like that anymore. So when you have a professional resume done, that's your doorway to get into somewhere. So you want to make sure that your strongest skills and accomplishments are shown on your resume and that you're a good match for the position. Now, what a lot of people do not realize is that 75% of all resumes may not make it to a human being. They are filtered through an applicant tracking system. And if you don't have the correct, what I call buzzwords or competencies listed on your resume, that tracking system can spit out your resume. So you could be the most qualified person for the job, but this tracking system doesn't know it because they're just looking for various words. So it's really important that you have those words that may be in a job description on your resume. 95% of many Fortune 500 companies use this. Just about most companies use it. And only 10% of job applications result in interviews. So if you think of it, each job listing that you're applying for, they receive at least 250 resumes just for one job. So you really want to do your best to shine above the others. And one thing I always say, if any young man made Eagle Scout, that has to be on a resume. I've talked to managers over the years, and they always say, someone that's made Eagle Scout, that really shows the type of person they are, because there's so much dedication and loyalty and hard work that goes into it. So just little things like that can make a big difference on your resume. Now, candidates that are referred through somebody else have a much higher percentage of getting an interview. So in other words, if you happen to want to get a job at BAE Systems and you happen to know a neighbor or some colleague or something, if you can, somehow get an introduction or drop the word, my colleague John Doe recommended that I reach out to you, that you have a much better chance that they're going to really pay attention to your resume. And professionally written resumes increase the chances of finding a new role by anywhere from 32 to 68%. And 42% of those people usually earn a higher position. It's very easy. When I do resumes for people, I don't do all a lot of people think if you have all the fancy graphics and the colors and all of that stuff, it's going to make a difference. It doesn't. Employers want to see just the facts. They don't need to see all the glitzy flowers. A lot of that is actually spit out on those scanning software programs anyway. So, just concise bullet, what you've done, what your skills are is really what they want to see. The average employer spends no more than 6 seconds looking at a resume. So you want to make sure you capture the most important part of what you want to say to them by the time you're halfway down the first page. It's okay to have a 2-page resume, but it's not okay usually to have any more than 2 pages. I always say to people, when it goes over 2 pages, it's no longer a resume, it's now a novel, and people don't have time for that. You can make a portfolio, which is where you would, take like any certifications you may have, or letters of recommendation, which I strongly recommend people do when they're applying for jobs, because a lot of times references, some companies aren't allowed to give references, but a letter of recommendation is very important. But you can explain a lot of things once you get your foot in for the interview. So you don't have to put every little thing that you've done on the resume, because an employer is not going to take the time to read that. Only the things that are really important and special achievements. Now, many people have been worried about a resume gap, especially during the pandemic. A lot of people have lost their jobs due to COVID. It's okay to put that on a resume. Employers understand that. And if there's any gap at all in your employment history, even if you were a stay-at-home parent, or you were taking care of an aging parent, it's okay to put that in your resume. There's a way that you can word it. It's much better to do that than leave a big gap, because the first thing an employer is going to think of is, where was this person for the last 10 years? Could this person have been in jail? They don't know. So it's up to you to gracefully explain why you weren't working in the last 10 years. And there's ways of doing that. And you can also explain it even more so in a cover letter. Other things, if you haven't been working, that you can include on your resume, are there things that you were doing to improve yourself? Were you taking courses? Were you getting any sort of certifications to make yourself more employable? Were you doing part-time or any volunteer work? Because all of these skills are all important in getting a job. So you can list them just like you were doing a job, because technically you're working, you just weren't getting paid for it. So try not to worry if you have gaps in your history, as long as you have a way to explain it. Okay, one of the most important factors in your job search is having a LinkedIn profile. A lot of people think that a LinkedIn profile is kind of like having a Facebook account, and it's not. If you're using a LinkedIn profile like Facebook, you shouldn't be, because it's not meant, this is a professional networking platform. You're not going to say, I went out and had lunch with my sister, blah, blah, blah. This is strictly meant for other employers and professional people to see you. So, for example, if you're on LinkedIn, you want to be seen, you want to be heard. And how do you do that? Number one, it's important to have connections. And depending on what profession that you're in, like if you're in a sales field, you have to be more careful of who your connections are, because you don't want to have a competitor be one of your connections that can steal all of your good connections. But for some people, it doesn't matter. And I know myself, I always make some sort of a posting on LinkedIn, because every time I do that, people, all of my connections see it. Not only do my connections see it, but every person that I am connected with has connections. They see it. So it's kind of like a big family tree, and everybody sees your post. Now, if you're in the, I don't know, say you're in the healthcare industry, you never post anything controversial, but you could just post something, a quick blurb on something you read on Newsweek or Time magazine, anything. When people see that, you slowly climb up the ladder. People will start seeing you more and more. A lot of people do not know my name, but they may see a posting that I put and they'll go, I remember that lady. I can't think of her name, but I know she has something to do with jobs. That's okay, because that's what you want people to remember you for. So a LinkedIn profile, there's reasons why it's so important. As I said before, it's not like Facebook. It's the complete opposite. A lot of times employers will go to LinkedIn just if you go on an interview or you're going to be interviewed. An employer will look on LinkedIn first just to confirm you're who you say you are. And if you do not have a picture on your LinkedIn profile, the chances are nobody's going to believe you. I have taken trainings on LinkedIn, and that's a no-no. You have to have a picture, and it has to be a professional looking picture. I know many years ago, I worked with this man, and he took a picture of himself in an old fishing hat with a fishing pole, and he put it on LinkedIn. And I said, you can't do that. He goes, why? I like fishing. I said, yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with the job you're looking for. So it's got to be more of a professional profile. If you can't afford to go and have one done, with the phones today, as long as it's a neutral background, you can just, your friend can take one, and you can post that on there too. 87% of recruiters look on LinkedIn finding people. If you're looking for work, there is a section on LinkedIn that goes around your picture that says open to work. So recruiters and managers can see that. So you kind of stand out a little bit more. If you're looking for work, but you're still working and you don't want your coworkers or your manager to know, I wouldn't recommend putting that part on. But aside from that, you can have recruiters look at your LinkedIn profile, but LinkedIn is a wonderful, wonderful way of networking. I know I had a colleague of mine several years ago that reached out to me, and he was applying for some sort of an IT management job in this company. And he noticed, because we were connected on LinkedIn, he noticed that I had several connections within this company. And he said, do you think you could just reach out to your connections and, make sure my resume gets to the right person? So I did. I said, hey, I know this person, he's good at what he does. Is there any way we can make sure this gets to the right person? he got a call that afternoon and he ended up getting the job. So that's really, really important. That's what LinkedIn is all about. It's great networking opportunities. People, recruiters, everybody's always looking for good help and good talent. And this is one way that they do it. And if you have a well-written profile, that's what builds trust and credibility. So when you are applying for a job, your potential manager will say, gee, this is what it says on his or her resume, and now I see it on LinkedIn. This must be legit. Not only LinkedIn is it for that reason, but they also have some up-to-date job opportunities, job openings that are on LinkedIn all the time. So you could use it for that as well. So what do you do if you have been laid off? This is the old pink slip that we all worry about. And I know I was laid off one time in my career, and it's a devastating feeling, no matter what. It's just a horrible feeling. And for anybody, and I do a lot of this in my career counseling, but anybody who has lost their job due to COVID, or they have lost their job because it has been sent, the job has been sent overseas, there is funding out there that will retrain you in a new career. It's called, I know for the COVID, it's called the WIOA Act, which is the Work, Innovation, and Opportunity Act, and a specific federal monies that is set aside to help retrain you in another field. And then they also have another one for trade adjustment assistance. That is for people who, like sometimes companies send all of their call center work over to India or, other countries, and jobs are lost over here. You can qualify to get free training for that. And there's other things like the dislocated worker. There used to be things for women who stayed home for many years, and then all of a sudden they find themselves feeling like they have no skills. There is a lot out there. It's just that you have to know about it. So if you should need to update or create a resume, New England Career Services is here for you. I also do career counseling, and that I will do a talk about that in a couple of weeks. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Okay.
I think there were a couple in the chat.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Okay.
So
How do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know if you have the right keywords in your resume? Okay. For example, the main thing is to look at the job description of the job you're applying for. So if it's saying things like, maybe there's a certain software program that, depending on whatever type of job you're applying for, and maybe those are the type of things that they want to see. Or someone that, they may look for someone that can multitask. It could be a job where you're working in a hospital and you may have to be answering the phone, putting files away, greeting customers. They want to make sure, because some people aren't always capable of doing all those things. Some people are better at just doing one or two tasks, and other people can just fly around and do this, this, and this, and they're at their best. So the important thing is look at the job description and make sure some of those words are in there. How do we add a whole resume to LinkedIn or just a short description of our positions? When I help people with their LinkedIn profile, you can actually upload your resume onto LinkedIn. And I usually do, whenever I do a resume for someone, I always start out with a professional summary. That only has to be maybe 2 or 3 lines, kind of summing up where you've been and where you want to go. So for some people, you may have, say, been in the sales industry for the last 20 years. So, you know, you may say something like sales professional who's been in or a career person. I'm just trying to think things off the top of my head. In the sales industry for the last 20 years, seeking a new career path in the medical field, for example, if you're looking to change jobs, or looking for new opportunities in whatever field it is you're looking for. So a professional summary right up front is what you would want to, the people to see right away. And you can, like I said, you can put your resume on there too. Would we be able to have a copy of your slides for reference? I think, I didn't send you, I can send this to you and you can send it to people if you like. I'll send you a copy of the PowerPoint. Okay, any other questions?
And by the way, I've recorded this too, so if anybody wants to see a replay, I can send it to you. Just let me know. Yeah. So, John, did you have any other questions? I see that you unmuted yourself.
Yeah. The letter of recommendation. When do you include that? And should it be written for a specific position, or should it be left? Should I have that person leave it generic? The best practice.
That's a good question. That is a good question. I always recommend that you always be prepared when you're doing your career search. So you don't have to ask for a specific letter of recommendation for the certain job you're applying for, because number one, an employer wants to hear what you were like when you were working with that person. So the person's going to write a letter of recommendation of what your skills and strengths were when you worked with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When do you provide that? Do you provide it with the resume, or do you wait for them to ask?
What I recommend is if you go in for an interview, you can make a little portfolio for yourself, just a little plastic binder. You don't have to, it gets expensive if you're going to give them every time you go somewhere to apply for a job, but employers are welcome to make copies of it. And when you're talking to the person, you just say, by the way, this is a copy of my portfolio if you'd like to browse through it. And that's when you show it. Once in a while, if you're applying online, they may ask for other documentation. If they do, you can upload things that way. But otherwise, just bring something with you is what I would recommend.
Great.
Yeah. Just a short letter speaks volumes, because a lot of companies today do not allow employees to even give letters of references. They'll just say it's not our policy. We do not I'm not allowed to give references, but I can just confirm the dates of employment. And, people say, well, how can I get a bad reference? Even people can give a bad reference just by the tone of their voice on the phone. So bad references can still be given. May not be said, but like, would you consider, because a question will come up, would you ever consider this person for rehire? Well, if there's silence on the other end of the phone, or there's a deep breath and a go, you've already got your answer, But that's what I would recommend.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, looking to get back to work for being a stay-at-home mom after 10 years. How should I word this on my resume? Well, first of all, you need to have an idea of what you're going to do. Are you going to go back into the career that you had before you were a stay-at-home mom? If not, maybe career exploration to see what else is out there. And then you create your resume based on what career, what direction you're going. Because there's certain skills that you may want to really highlight on certain jobs that may not be as necessary on other jobs. But I just did a resume for a man that he was a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, I mean, for 7 years. And we put some, I forget how it went, but it was, you know, after 10 years of, I forget how I worded it, but it was done in a very cute way, but you got the picture. This is, you know, during my stay as a stay-at-home dad, I developed strong time management skills. You know, all the things you do, time management, for all the things that you do when you're a parent, you know, which is the toughest job of all. So yes, there is a way to word that.
Diffusing bombs and whatnot.
Exactly.
Putting out fires.
That's diplomacy, you know, and
hazardous waste cleanup.
exactly. Creativity, all of that stuff. Yes. Oh, should I list my volunteer work at the beginning? Or at the beginning of my resume or at the end? That usually I put it at the end, but if it was volunteer work that had a lot to do with the job you're applying for example, if you were applying for something maybe in the medical field, being a phlebotomist or a surgical tech or something like that, and you did a lot of volunteer work in a hospital, then yeah, you probably want to put that up closer to the top because it shows that you're very familiar with the medical environment to begin with. And what was the other, let's see, can you repeat what you said about the professional summary? Did you say to put that at the, yes, a professional summary goes at the very top of a resume. That is your introduction of who you are. So if you can look at a resume, I kind of look at it is, it's kind of like putting makeup on for you women here that understand this. You put your makeup on, you have to have a base. And then you want to make sure that, you know, and an introduction of who you are. So that's the professional summary is right in the very beginning. This is what I have been for, you know, a professional in the whatever medical field, medical industry, looking to enhance my career, bring my skills to a new level in a new career path as a whatever it is you know looking for. But that's what a professional summary kind of tells the employer very quickly where you've been and where you want to go. Some people don't have anything. Some people may call it an objective, which you can use that too. The reason I say professional summary, because a professional summary kind of highlights very quickly what you did before and where you want to go now, where an objective really focuses on just where you're going now. You know, objective, seeking a career as a LNA, you know, something like that. And it's important too, if you have just gotten out of college, I would recommend putting your education up closer to the top, where someone who has been out of school, usually your experience is what an employer wants to see first. And keep in mind, an employer will spend 6 seconds looking at your resume. In those 6 seconds, you have to make sure you have an eye-friendly font. You don't need all this fancy printing, these calligraphy and all that. It's very hard on the eyes. You don't need something that's super bold and black. And an employer wants to see, more importantly, what your job titles were versus where you worked in the very beginning. When I was in college, I took a resume writing course with 2 managers from, I think it was one of those big Hewlett Packard or one of those big computer firms. And I remember them saying that anything that's italics does not always show on the scanning systems, and always have a friendly font, friendly to the eye font, because you got to realize that these people are looking at your resume and hundreds of others. And if it's hard to read, they're just going to go on to the next one.
You said something at the beginning about how a lot of these resumes are, they're not seen by a human until after they go through some sort of filtering process, right?
Right.
So is there anything that we should know absolutely to avoid any buzzwords that are like redundant, or that they're just gonna see it and they're gonna immediately spit it out, like I was thinking multitasking, but you used that and said that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I just feel like everybody does it, and nobody really does it.
It's interesting. If you read on some of the things, there's certain words that are overdone.
Yeah.
Words like, if you say something like responsible for, that's kind of vague. There's different ways that you could word things. If you're working in an industry that brings in revenue, that's what they want to see. How much of a percentage or increase did you bring for sales for your department? They like to look for measurements. Not all jobs are like that, but certain jobs are. Or how many people did you manage is another one. Do you have good management skills, good training skills? Because a lot of that will be part of the job that that you're applying for. So they do want to know that kind of stuff. Yes, cover letters are very important. And do we still use bullets to list our job skills for each company that we work for, or a brief summary for each company? Bullets is better. And you wouldn't, you wouldn't put, okay, I was an administrative assistant, and then you wouldn't put like bullet typing, bullet typed letter, answered phone calls, bullet filing. You would use sentences that are a little bit more professional. But you don't have to. The only time you would use a summary under a company is if you work with a company and you're trying to explain to the employer what that company does. So sometimes these are a more high-tech type of jobs, and it's something that is known within the industries, or sometimes it's engineering or something, and they may kind of have a brief summary of what that department in the big company did. But yeah, usually bullets. You just don't want long rambling sentences, because nobody's going to read it. Any other questions?
I think this was great. You covered a lot, and I mean, I definitely learned a lot. So I think hopefully it was super helpful for everyone. They're all still here, so.
Well, they were all just kind of taking everything in, probably trying to
Yeah.
picture their resume going, ooh,
Yeah.
gee, now I got to look at my resume and see, you know,
Yeah.
what it's
I know
all about.
mine's definitely too long. I have a lot of those mistakes on mine. And Cheryl, for the record, I was a stay-at-home mom for just over 10 years before I got this job at the library in July. So here I am working part-time after having been just home with the kids, just, for what feels like forever.
Yeah.
So, but they were very forgiving, I guess, about my resume.
Well, I just think that, and even more so now, that no one ever gave enough credit for stay-at-home moms or dads,
Mm,
and I know even, when my kids were little, it was just downplayed. It really was. You would go to some event and everybody's talking about all this technical stuff, and you're sitting there going, all I knew about today was Big Bird and whatever, because that was your life. But that doesn't mean that you had a lot of skills that you were doing that day, a lot of things that you were juggling, that I think I really do think people recognize it more now than they did before.
I do too. I do too. And I think that's one of, for me, a relatively short list of things we can thank social media for.
Right, exactly.
So,
And
anyway.
some of the things like, I do this more in the other presentation that I'll do in a few weeks, but the questions they used to ask people, that they just can't do that anymore. Like, I mean, if a woman was in her 20s, they could just say, when are you going to have children? Because really, that's the way it was. And the reason being because they didn't want a woman, they didn't have the laws they have now, but they didn't want a woman to be out being pregnant, and it was just, women were just treated differently in the workforce back probably in the 70s versus today. It's much, much more common today for women to be working than it was back then. And there's much more childcare and, all the different things that you can take off when you're having a baby that they just didn't have back then,
Yeah, a lot of progress has been made.
Yeah. And the one thing I forgot to mention this, a lot of people feel that it's okay to put your hobbies on a resume. It really isn't necessary to do that. And I always say, think of the audience that might be looking at your resume. So that you never want to put something down like I campaigned for the Trump or the Biden or whatever campaign you were for. You never, ever put that stuff down. You may not even say something like, I'm a avid Red Sox fan or whatever, because you don't know that the person reading that resume might hate the Red Sox. And subconsciously, you can just get, people do that and you just get kicked out, So you try to keep your, even if you're volunteering at your church, I just try to keep it, you don't have to be very specific in what church it is, and try to keep that stuff as neutral as possible, just because you don't know who the audience is reading your resume and what their reaction is going to be. You never know. People just react.
Not worth the risk.
No, and it could be
great advice.
You have there's no reason to hide any of this. You're not doing anything wrong, but like, oh yeah, I'm a real Red Sox fan. Well, how do you know that the guy or the woman reading your resume could be a Yankees fan? It's like, no, you just don't do that. Keep it as neutral as possible.
So I think we
Just
have
the facts about your skills.
This is great. We're gonna have to close up because the library, we gotta get
Yeah.
out of here. But I'm so glad that you could do this. And if you guys aren't already registered, please do feel free to register for Donna's next program, which is a week from tonight, where she's going to talk about sort of navigating career opportunities, career changes, you know, for people who are making transition, shifting, really in any age or stage. So that's on our event calendar. If you just go to our website at lawrencelibrary.org. And yeah, we would love to have you guys back. And in the meantime, I am, you guys can reach me at mdooney, DOONEY, at cwmars.org. So if anybody has any questions or and I should have, Donna, I should have put your website in the comments and I didn't do that, but you know what? I will have a recording for you guys. And if anybody wants the slides, Donna offered to do the slides. So maybe what I'll do is tomorrow when I come in, I'll just shoot an email to everyone just so that they have these things and, you know, that way.
If you Google New England Career Services, I will come up and you can.
That's
read
how I
about
found
the
her.
Services. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and then you know, you can read my reviews and you know, the services that I do offer. And I am meeting, I do meet people remotely now too. So you know, a lot of people prefer that right now. And we do Zoom meetings and you'll see when you come to the next presentation, but I do have ways of finding out what your strengths are so that we do know how to go the next step. So, well, thank you everybody for your time and have a great evening. And I hope to see you all in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, actually 1 week, right? It's 1 week.
Is it next week? Is it next
Yeah.
week?
Yes, the 25th.
Well, tonight I'll share something. Tonight was my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on your birthday.
That's all right. 39 and holding.
Yeah. Awesome.
But,
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
but thank you so much for the opportunity. And you have my contact information, all of you, and feel free to reach out to me if you know, if there was something you didn't understand. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks everyone for coming. All right. It was a pleasure having you, Donna, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, great. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.